Hello and welcome to Downtown. I'm your host, Robbie Haig. Thank you for being with us again. And in the past, we haven't talked much about the fact that Downtown is coming to you from Sandwich. I talked to you before about us changing the name from Seniority to Downtown, but we neglected to say we've gone from Downtown Plymouth to Downtown Sandwich. Anyway, welcome. It's good to have you here. Today I'm talking with Plymouth Town Manager Melissa Arrighi, and I would like to welcome you to the show, Melissa.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. I've wanted to do this on your show for a long time.
I thank you. And all things happen the way they should be. Tell me a little about you, Melissa. I like to have a little background on the people I talk to.
Sure.
Not in depth.
I don't do that a lot, so let's see. I started working in Plymouth 15 years ago. I started as the assistant town manager under Mark Sylvia. I'm just going to put a plug in for him right now. He was a fantastic town manager. I respected him quite a bit.
And a nice man.
I served as acting town manager twice, once when Mark left, and then a second time when a new town manager that they had hired left, and then I took the position full time. Prior to that, I worked down here on the Cape. I was the assistant town administrator in Orleans, beautiful little community, under also a great town administrator, John Kelly. So I was lucky to work with two really wonderful town managers. And before that, I spent about 13 years in higher education. I worked at Bridgewater State University.
Really?
It was Bridgewater State College at the time, my alma mater. And there I received both my bachelor's degree and my master's degree. And during, a little bit before I started my master's program, I was involved in the town of Bridgewater. I served on both the personnel board and on the zoning board of appeals at different times. And I became really interested in town government. At the same time, the then vice president of the college became president, Dana Molifaria, was starting what was called a town community relations group. Some called it town gown, some called it college community, because there was always a little bit of misunderstanding between the town of Bridgewater and the college students. Now, the college is one of the biggest employers in the town, as is the prison, but they don't necessarily pay taxes. And I think that sometimes frustrated residents. So we started working on better communication between the two. And it was a wonderful experience and why I got into this line of work.
So you had planned on getting into this line of work, did you?
I did. Once I served on those and worked at the college doing town gown relations, I decided it was something that I'd like to pursue. As much as I did enjoy working in higher education, when I left, I worked out of the Human Resource Department in the student employment area. And we had about 1,300 students that worked on campus. So it was just sort of a nice segue from going from that kind of employment in really what a college is a mini town. It has public works, it has the professors, it has education, it has the social aspect to it, it has the library, so it really is a mini town. And it was a nice transition for me.
And we did try very hard to get you to be town manager there, back a ways.
Well, I appreciate that, thank you. I'm glad I'm the town manager now.
I'm glad you are too. So, we want to talk about wonderful things that are happening in and around the town. And of course, we're coming up to the biggie 2020. And even though that is not our total focus, correct?
It isn't our focus.
Right.
2020 is fantastic. I'd like to think that we celebrate Plymouth all the time, but there has been a group that has done so much work on the 400th signature events, and we're proud to partner with them and help them on that. Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Ken Tavares, is also leads the 400th group, as well as with another group of people who have worked really hard to make this a success. We're having more and more meetings leading up to what those events will look like, where they will be, what kind of security will be there, what kind of advertising will happen. We have another meeting on that where we'll bring all the interested parties together this week. But we are just trying to improve the town, and we have some pretty dedicated department heads and, in all honesty, a really supportive town meeting that has provided us with the funding to do many of these projects. So what I like to do when I meet new residents or here on the show is you pick a part of town, any part of town that you want in a massive community of Plymouth, and we are doing improvement projects there, or you're seeing change. If we start out at the northern end of town, you see a new park entrance there in the most northern end of the community, Veterans Park. You see the Cottage development, and boy, is that going to change that whole area. 600 units, and all of that is just in the first phases of what you're going to see.
And right on the waterfront.
Right on the waterfront, there'll probably be a marina or a restaurant. I mean, there'll be so much that will follow it, in addition to better service, train service that you'll see from the MBTA there. Right now, the times aren't convenient,
right?
But trust me, they will be.
They
We're
will
already
be.
making improvements there.
Yeah.
Work your way into the downtown and the waterfront area. Right now, David Gould, who you know personally and professionally, he is the Director of Marine and Environmental Affairs. We've convinced him, it took a little bit of work, but he has taken over the Stevens Field project, and I love that park. It is another one of those anchor parks to Nelson that was redone quite a few years ago now. David will be starting that project any day now, while he is wrapping up Holmes Park. I don't know if you've been by there, but let me tell you.
I have been by there.
Since we opened that skateboard park on Friday night, because the whole park isn't open yet.
Yes.
But since we opened that skateboard park, you can't keep those kids away. They are having
It
an
was
absolute field day.
loaded.
As it
And I
should
drive
be.
by there all the time. Yeah, it's really. I'm glad also that they left the mural on the back
The
wall.
mural, and if you go through there, look really closely when we open the park, because David does some clever things. In each of the sitting areas, you'll see large pieces of granite that you can sit on that came from when we demolished where the new town hall is now. He used quite a bit of that granite. A lot of the bricks are the reused bricks from when we demolished the old commissioner's building portion of the 1820. But what I like the most is in every one of the brick seating areas, if you look close, you'll see one brick in there that's a hedge brick. So to me, it's combining that historic component in the reuse and the recycling of material.
Right.
Besides the sheer beauty of that location and the walking paths. I mean, for a walker like you, you're going to love it. You'll be able to go from that downtown area all the way up
It is beautiful.
to Morton Park.
Yes.
It is beautiful.
And I happen to have a friend living in that area, so I'll be doing it more often than
Good,
even
good.
you might think.
Right, good.
And it's beautiful.
You go down to South Plymouth, you go down to the Manomet Cedarville area, you know that we're doing projects in there. Not quite as exciting because they're, or
Right.
glamorous, I should say, because
Yeah.
they're road projects, but they're desperately needed.
Right.
I do hear that we have the whole town ripped up right now, and I want to assure people it's not for the 400th. I mean, that maybe helped motivate some people.
Sure.
But for us, it's because these are projects that have been long overdue, and over the last few years, town meeting and the Board of Selectmen have said, get them done. We'll back you with the public financing, make sure you do them well, and let's get all our roads in better shape. And that's what Jonathan Beater, the DPW director, has been trying pretty diligently to do with his team.
And I have to mention the waterfront area, the area where they have the bands on the waterfront every Wednesday night. It is gorgeous. What has been done there in front of the rock, our big rock, is truly beautiful. And at night when the mini lights are on, I could just sit there and watch them twinkle.
You know, that's nice to hear. I was just somewhere recently in my private life, it wasn't at work, and I ran into some people that had just visited Plymouth, and they were in that whole downtown waterfront area, and they were very complimentary. And I said, boy, why aren't you the people that post on Facebook? You know what I mean? Sometimes we just get the negative, and it was wonderful to hear. There's been some controversy about those twinkle lights, so I'm glad to hear that you like them. It's not always easy to keep up on those.
Oh, I've heard it too, and I talk a lot in town about how beautiful they are. And one person in particular said, do we really have to pay for those twinkle lights to be on all night, blah, blah, blah. But they're mini. They're, they don't take a lot of energy.
I think sometimes you have to make some choices. Plymouth has not sometimes, you have to make choices. Plymouth has a $250 million budget, and it's not shrinking. It's going to grow. Mm-hmm. The demands of the residents that live there are vast. They want more services. They want our wonderful Center for Active Living. I still can slip back and say senior center. They want to open more. They're engaged. It's crowded all the time. They want all different kinds of programming, and they deserve it.
Yes.
The schools are fantastic, but that budget is very high. But you want to have reasonable class sizes. You want these students to have programs in music and art and programs that will just enhance their core education, as well as advanced classes and special education. In addition, we have 2 libraries. That's important. When you see, a library isn't just a library anymore to go read.
Certainly not
And
in Plymouth. My goodness gracious, I'm on the board.
So look at that. Compliment without even realizing
it. It's absolutely fantastic what they do.
And recreation, the recreation programs. I mean, when you live in such a great place like the town of Plymouth, you don't want to reduce the services. And the beauty is important. The beauty of the downtown with the hanging plants and the lighting and making sure that we do a better job of replacing the flags on a regular basis so they don't get tattered. That is all really important, not just because we're a tourist community, because we're a fantastic town.
And we have to mention that the roof has just been put on, a new roof has been put on the library, and it's absolutely gorgeous.
Haven't been by to see the roof project.
Okay, well, that's a good reason for you to come by.
It is. Well, there's lots of good reasons, but we have a lot of roof projects that we need to do. And I will tell you that as much as I want to compliment and brag about the town of Plymouth, there are things that we haven't done perfectly. We have let our buildings go over the years. And I believe it was
I'm so glad to hear you say that.
It's every town, and that's not an excuse, but it's every town. We have about 32 public buildings. And when you're looking to reduce, even staffing alone, those are the areas that you tend to cut back on because your core services are tough. And don't forget, we have 7 fire stations, and many of those were built in a day when it was call and volunteer firefighters a long time ago. When they were built, they were never meant to house somebody like these men and women need to stay there now and protect us in 24-hour shifts. So we need to make a better commitment, and I think we have, to improving those fire stations. They need roofs, they need their kitchens updated, they need freshening up inside, just like you would do with your own home every 20 years. So I'm hoping that you and I and the rest of the town, and particularly our firefighters, our men and women that work there, that do these jobs for the community, will see improvements prior to fall town meeting. We have a dedicated facilities manager. We're starting to grow the staff. We're having a little bit of trouble right now because of our some of our frontline workers in that department aren't at work right now for various reasons. They're out on longer leaves of absence. And because of that, we don't kind of have the hands-on that we need, but we're still going to try and get these projects done for fall.
Excellent. And I'm not letting go of the library for a moment. There are not a lot of people who know that we have such a fantastic GED program at the library. And in this past year, the numbers of people who are taking the GED program have doubled. It's like 96 people right now.
Isn't that fantastic? Are they all Plymouth people?
Basically, yes. But I don't think they're only Plymouth people.
Well, that's okay. We can open up to regions.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it's just such a successful thing.
That's wonderful to know the library is doing that.
Yeah.
I like some
And
of
volunteers.
the intergenerational programs that we have with the schools.
Yes.
I think that's important.
I think it's more
been a
than
success.
important.
And do you know the new director of the senior center?
I certainly do.
Okay.
Yeah. I volunteer there too.
Wow, someone's busy.
But it's wonderful that back a ways, well, I don't know if you know that I started this program back when we felt we needed a new senior center. So that's how long I've been doing this. For the awareness for the town. And why did I digress? Why did I go there? Oh, at that time, there was a question of having the senior center over in Forges Field, in that area. And the reason they didn't do it at that time was because they didn't want a senior center interfering with where the kids played.
Interfering. Interesting word choice. Isn't that awful?
Yes. And now look at what's happened. The North High School and the Senior Center are basically in the exact area. They interact with each other, and I know personally that the kids who come from the high school over to the senior center are enjoying every bit as much as the seniors are. What a concept.
No, it's great.
It's as it should be.
And I remember when Plymouth was going for the 199 debt exclusion override to build 2 new schools in a senior center, you saw that partnership even then. The kids with the seniors in our community and how they can share experiences, and our seniors can help teach some of the students and vice versa. So it's worked out well.
Yeah, I think the senior center has taken on where grandparents have left off. You know?
Nice point.
Yeah.
Now, you're still working, doing anything with the open space?
With the open space.
Friends of the, what is the name now? Friend of the Open Space Committee. So it was a neat thing they did in Plymouth. A lot of the people that were truly dedicated to open space, green space, environmental protection, community preservation got together, and they formed Friends of, I think it's still called the Friends of Open Spaces.
Yeah.
And they all meet together and talk about some of the ways they can enhance Plymouth and try and balance all the development we have going on, because it can be somewhat shocking when we talk about how much residential development is booming in Plymouth, which is both a wonderful thing and can be a little bit intimidating in terms of making sure that as a government we can provide the appropriate services. And by that I mean such a thing as simple as water. With more and more residential homes coming in, and even a hotel, can we pump and provide enough water to make the home of the business viable?
Speaking of water, the Herring Ponds watershed that I used to be part of when I was down in South Plymouth, they have, I don't even know how to condense it to a few words. The group has been working on the Little Herring Pond and Great Herring Pond for 10 years to clean up the water. And that has been accomplished this year, and we'll be hearing more about it in the spring of 2020 because of what the people have done in that area, volunteers, most of them seniors, what they have done to clean up the water in the Carter's River is as close to rainwater as possibly can be. As one of them said to me, I wouldn't want to drink it, but we'll be hearing more about that. That is fantastic.
Well, I think you've seen a dedication by the residents in the community to step up and volunteer and help do testing. I mean, you look at some of the conditions of some of the ponds, and you see some of the blooms, and you heard about the cyanobacteria. It was last year, and we've created a department that not all the communities have, which is our Department of Marine and Environmental Affairs. They actually bring in more grant money than any of the other departments, sometimes combined. They're able to do a lot of their work, though, because of the volunteer groups throughout the communities that are willing to jump in and assist with the pond or the lake in their area and how we make improvements to it. But I have to tell you, one of the hard things for everybody to hear is one of the things that might need to be improved in a lot of these areas is the sewer systems, their own private septic systems. It might require out-of-pocket expenses that include upgrades to those systems and testing them, and we should not have another cesspool in the town of Plymouth. So I think that you're going to see over the next couple of years a real push in that direction, but it doesn't come free.
And if I'm not mistaken, it doesn't have to be done until the property is sold. Am I correct? So it doesn't have to be upgraded? So
upgrading now, if your system is failing, there is some conversation about when you upgrade. But no, if we really are committed to improving our water quality in these ponds and lakes, there are steps that we may need to take sooner prior to selling the home.
And I am amazed that Little Herring Pond, a 90-acre pond with 3 aquifers, is responsible for 80% of the water in Great Herring Pond. That's mind-blowing. And it's all clean water now, and everybody's enjoying what they've enjoyed before, but we're getting clean.
Well, they set a good example for some of our other ponds that need that kind of work.
Excellent. Very good. So, what are some of the upcoming upgrades that you might like to talk about right now?
So some of the ongoing projects that we have in Plymouth that are on the government side is we are, of course, building a new North Plymouth fire station. That project is going on now. We're building a beautiful brand new maritime facility that you may have seen. We're not going to abandon that harbor master's shack.
That's good.
You know, we love that little building. It's
That's even nicer than motive number one.
It's adorable. But it will probably just become storage because it doesn't really have any. It doesn't have bathroom facilities in there, so it's not really appropriate as an office, but it certainly can be some kind of storage so it can remain in so many of the pictures that you see around.
Yeah.
We are going to be working on Stevens, which I mentioned. We are doing a new well at Forges Field, which is really important because that will at least ensure that the demand that we have right now can be met at all times of the year. Jonathan Beater, the DPW director, has all these paving projects around town, and in the next month you'll see a presentation to the Board of Selectmen that will show how many more miles of road we have brought up to a better standard,
Very good.
grade. We have projects going on in our recreation area. I think that you've seen some of the improvements that have already been made at the Menomet Youth Center. You're going to continue to see improvements. Now you may remember just a few years ago we were ready to abandon the Menomet Youth Center. It wasn't receiving the kind of, the kids weren't coming there, it didn't have the kind of programming that was bringing people in, and Selectman Cavaco stepped in and she formed a friends group that was really able to help supplement the budget we have for that site and make improvements, and now I think you can go by there anytime and see how crowded it is and how much it's being used.
It just shows how important volunteering is also. Volunteering is, and we all love our town. Put a little energy into it.
That's right.
Do some volunteering.
We still have some buildings we need to make decisions on. Some have been controversial. Little Red Schoolhouse is one. It doesn't necessarily have a pure government focus, and by that I do not mean it is not important. I mean that it doesn't have a government function in terms of how the organization is set up. We need to make a decision on selling the water barn, which is on Long Pond Road, that big metal building which would probably be knocked down. We already have permission from town meeting to sell it. We haven't done that yet because, as you know, we're in litigation with Veolia about the wastewater treatment plant and the project, that $48 million project we had to do. So some of the pipe that was destroyed or some of the pipe that was decayed is stored there, so we need to wait until that process is over. Off Billington Street, you're familiar with that location?
Yes.
We have that old Public Works building that was there. The Community Preservation Committee is looking into that now to see if it should be salvaged as storage because it's a beautiful brick building and we had recommended demolition. And not because we want to demolish and abandon everything, only because we know how important it is, one, that the people want us to get buildings back on the tax rolls or land back on the tax roll if we're not using it. And two, you don't want to have buildings just sit. If they don't have somebody in it or running it and managing it on a regular basis, that's when things can go wrong.
They'll deteriorate on their own.
Or they will, or they could, somebody could break in, you could have vandalism, graffiti, things that cause eyesores. So we really need to only keep those structures that we're using regularly.
It all sounds so wonderful to me, Melissa.
It's a great town.
It's a great town. And you're a great manager.
Well, thank you for that.
Thank you. And you have been listening to Melissa Arrighi, who is town manager in Plymouth. And we're so happy to have you here at our table. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
And thank you out there for watching. This is your host, Robbie Haig, saying, I hope to see you back here real soon. Thank you.